ready.
Okay, getting this.
So this is a pencil compass, also known as a mechuga,
Correct. Very, very good.
to make circles.
Mechuga. And yes, the Bible describes how the mechuga and at creation, Yahweh drew a circle or a chug. He drew a chug on the face of the deep. And that is kind of what we are going over. That is, of course, the Bible describes the mechuga in Isaiah 44:13 as being a carpenter's tool, with which he actually describes how men use the mechuga to make idols. So you would be able to cut out a perfect round circle when you draw a circle. Well, the earth is described as a chug in Isaiah 40:22, as well as Job 26:10. The circle of the earth. And then Proverbs...
So what are we doing?
Excuse me, I'm talking. Proverbs 8:27 then describes how the earth is a inscribed circle on the face of the deep. So we go back to Genesis chapter 1, and it says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth, or God created the heaven and the earth, and the Spirit of God hovered above. Well, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now, face in geometry is a flat planar surface. I asked a Hebrew-speaking Israelite from Israel his entire life what the word pan means, and it indeed does mean a flat side of a 3D object, such as a cube would have 6 faces. So it says, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the flat face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the flat face of the waters. The Spirit of God moved upon the flat face of the water. So that is the time in the beginning when Yahweh, Elohim, Yahweh God, inscribes a circle on the flat face of the deep and makes the circle the flat circle of the earth. Hence, we understand how the earth is a flat circle according to Scripture with a dome over top. Now, what we are actually working on is replicating the circular star trails, and that's what we are going to prove and go over together, is the way the heavens circle above our heads like a perfectly programmed and timepiece above our heads. Now, of course, we have gone over before the gases that the air and the wind and all the existing gas pressure all around us, the air we breathe, can only exist inside a container. That proves that we live inside a container. This atmosphere, this pressure gradient system that we exist inside could not exist up against the 10 to the negative 17 torr, very powerful vacuum of ever expanding outer space. The gas pressures prove the container, and of course, like any time in nature that we see water fills the shape of its container. It exists inside the container. So we know by those two proofs and evidences that we live inside a container, and the water, as it says in the following verses of Genesis chapter 1, the water fills the shape of its container. And that is where it says, and God said, let there be a firmament. Notice that it's a firm barrier that we are living inside and underneath. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and separated the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So there we see the waters that he, the following verse, it says, and God called the firmament heaven, and evening and morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the firmament be gathered, let the water under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And the dry land he called earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. So that's where we see that the waters are inside this container and the dome over top. And just like we would see inside any jug, a water is level and it fills the shape of its container. So there we have the two main huge proofs. We exist inside a container, and the water is flat and level inside that container up to a certain point until we have the open air, the gas pressure, which is also pressurized inside a container. So now we're going to reproduce the circling star trails above our head with a dome. Okay, go ahead and stop the video there. In the next video clip, we will be studying and scientifically proving what the glass dome combined with the properties of water can do for the northern and southern hemisphere star trails that we do witness, and how it would work over a flat earth under a dome. So we've drawn this all out, and what we've tried to mimic and to reproduce is the stars and our glass dome, although this one is not as dome-like as I would prefer it to be. It would work better. It doesn't really work very well when it's flat down. It's just a magnifying glass I found at Hobby Lobby, but this is what the stars do at night. They go in circles. They circle clockwise above our heads and go round and round and round. This is what it's doing, and you can picture, hold on buddy, the equator is here, and if you look in the south you'll see an anti-rotation, and if you look to the north you see a clockwise rotation. And we've tried to make a couple little dots like stars just as to see what they would do under the glass, since scripture says we live under a firmament, which is as a molten looking glass according to Job 37:18. And just picture the North Pole and Polaris right above the North Pole there, with, you know, the United States here, North America, South America, you know, Africa here, UK, you know, Australia down in the southern. So if you face this way, you get a rotation, and if you turn around and face the other way, you're getting an anti-rotation. And I'm just showing him here how you see as the stars, buddy, let me explain.
That's Cassiopeia.
As you see the stars rotate, this is what you will get with a time-lapse photo at night that will track the progression of the stars. While here, as you're looking through a molten looking glass structure, and it works this way or this way, you will see that on the one side over here, it's actually doing a counter rotation or an anti-rotation. And even above the stars, you can get that one dot we made as if it was a star actually progresses backwards. As I move the glass one direction, you see it, the one dot actually splits in half there, and it starts going the other direction. So this is how we can witness stars appearing to turn the opposite direction when we turn around to the southern hemisphere. So with the southern hemisphere and the Antarctic ice wall, the circle of the Earth all the way around, when we face out here, and here's the four corners of the Earth, and the dome comes and hits down here, and we face that way, our star trails are doing a counter rotation. However, the north it rotates the opposite way. So we'll see this one, you know, you see that little dot, it's gonna rotate. Actually, that appears to be going counterclockwise. And then the southern direction is going to go clockwise. That dot there. That's what it does. That star goes back and does a clockwise rotation. It comes around, and of course, I need a little better dome than this, but there it is right there. That's how it works. And then this one the other way. That's how our star trails work. It's not a globe, it's just a flat Earth, just like that. Doesn't matter if the dome is that way or that way. Same thing essentially takes place. That's how the atmospheric lens and the dome works. Thank you. So I may do a part 2. There's much more to be discussed about this topic. Of course, there's the movements of the sun and the phases of the moon and eclipses, and how do all these things operate if the Earth is indeed flat under a dome. But the first thing to really look at is this graphic we are currently examining, and what you will see in the bottom right corner is the that is the model of what we are told, that the globe is following that trail, and that's the solar system with the sun in the center, Helios, and the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour. It's equatorial movement of its equatorial spin every 24 hours. It takes place a full rotation, is 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Well, that is actually the slowest movement that we experience on Earth, as they tell us. And that movement could possibly produce the circular star trails of the northern and southern hemispheres. The problem is that we are not only doing a spinning motion according to the heliocentric model that we're told in the school system. We are also going around the sun at a mind-boggling speed of 66,600 miles per hour. Now, that's the second motion the Earth is making, and that is a much faster motion. There is a third motion because as you see the sun and the planets and the solar system, that entire solar system is now revolving and going around the Milky Way galaxy, where they tell us that our solar system exists inside the Milky Way galaxy. And that is, I'm just gonna throw a number out. I've heard 420,000 miles per hour, and I've heard more than 500,000 miles per hour, but that is even a much faster speed. And then when you get to the fourth and final motion they tell us about, is the whole entire Milky Way galaxy is moving throughout the ever-expanding universe at a mind-boggling speed of 1.2 million miles per hour. Now, with all these movements and all these speeds taking place, you would never only be witnessing the Earth's slowest motion of 1,000 miles an hour at the equatorial spin. That's all you see over the process of the night, is one circular motion happening. But if Earth were truly doing all the motions that they tell us, then it would have to be looking something more similar to the scribble you see in the top right-hand corner of this graphic. So that is the most important explanation and the most important detail to carry away, that the heliocentric model falls apart. However, what we have scientifically just observed and proved in this video is still on the table as a possibility, but the heliocentric model is not possible. Now, you could go with a stationary globe, you could go with a globe that is spinning but not doing all the other movements, and you could have a geocentric universe. So you could possibly still have a globe, but I believe this dome effect really is one of the major nail in the coffin proofs, along with scripture, of course, that this is the only explanation that can answer everything that we are seeing. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And again, I just wanted to cram as much information as I possibly could into this one video. At the end of the video, for those who have never heard of this and want to dig deeper, but this graphic is one that I just love. For one is the scripture Daniel 12:3, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. It's a literal structure that shines a brightness and reflects a brightness off of it. And then you'll see an example of something, a metal bowl of some kind, and a guy just putting a lighter there. And you'll see how it reproduces some of these effects and phenomenons that we see from time to time in our sky. And what else could be reproducing these effects that we see? And also you'll see a similar reflection in that very top left-hand corner, that little glass with water. The only real explanations of these things that we can also reproduce on a small scale, which is science. Science is observing something, reproducing it, which is something we cannot do with the heliocentric model and the orbital mechanics and things just floating in nothingness. That cannot be reproduced. However, this is a wonderful graphic to help start wrapping our mind around these phenomenons we see in our skies, as well as rainbows, and how that makes perfect sense that we see these visuals if we are indeed living under this biblical dome firmament. Now here is another very important graphic that you will not get this anywhere else other than this one little. I tell you what, a picture is, what's it say? A picture is worth 1,000 words, or is it more than that? Whatever it is, a picture is worth so many words, and that's why I show these. But I'm not familiar with all these scientific experiments actually, but they will not tell you about this stuff, and this gets into very technical scientific stuff that is hard to wrap your mind around. However, Michelson and Morley were experimenting in the late 1800s and the early 1900s and trying to detect the motion of the Earth through the ether, and long story short, they failed. They were unable to detect the Earth's motion when they would pass light in different directions. They were essentially, whether they passed the light to the east or the west, they were essentially coming up with the same measurements of the movement of light through the ether, and the ether, of course, is more or less just the wind or the space, the air, that light, the medium through which light travels. Einstein had to abolish the ether. He had to say the ether doesn't exist because they couldn't detect the speed of light at the speeds that the heliocentric globe model demanded, and because they could not detect those speeds through the ether of the light, he decided to say the ether doesn't exist. Well, later on, additional experiments such as the Sagnac and Airy's failure, where once again George B. Airy, he says, I'm going to settle this once and for all and determine if it's the stars above us that are rotating, the heavens, or the Earth. And he does that through his telescope experiment, fully expecting to discover the motion of the Earth. And that's why it's called Airy's failure, because he failed to detect Earth's motion. These experiments will not be taught or touched on or even mentioned in universities. They will only teach you the sciences that stand behind, of course, evolution and the Big Bang, ever-expanding universe, which demands the heliocentric model of the realm in which we exist. So this is just a graphic for people who are scientific-minded, who really want to dig deeper. Here it is. You got it here. And here's another graphic where you can see the lensing effect that water has on an object in the top portion of this photo. Additionally, you're going to see a near and far effect that the water has. It causes distortion. And then at the bottom, you're going to see an experiment which was actually performed by Rob Skiba. Brilliant experiment where he actually, using a lensing effect through a magnifying sheet that he got off Amazon, he actually is able to get the sun that he made out of a little piece of paper there. The sun is setting on a flat table with his phone on in front of that lensing sheet, and the sun moving backwards. As it moves away, it actually appears to set because of the lensing effect. When water in our atmosphere causes certain effects of objects, so the sun is not actually going down, it is actually just going further away. And again, just about the motions, these next 3 photos, pause and view them and study them. But if you don't understand that 3 Earth motions, actually 4 Earth motions, cannot result in 1 star motion, if you can't grasp that, then you will not grasp this at all. But 4 Earth motions cannot possibly produce 1 star trail motion. It would have to be, as a buddy of mine says, Nathan Thompson would say, an etch-a-sketch on crack is basically what we should be seeing in the skies when we do the time-lapse photo of the stars. And then the other 3 are just visual effects, fascinating to study just what the properties of a glass dome can produce, and rainbows, and how light travels through the ether. And then one final one, just a little video of me and something I noticed with a glass of water one night. We've got a rainbow, and through the glass and the water, making a rainbow, just like the flat earth dome firmament. That's how it happens, right there. That's how it becomes a rainbow. A dome glass with water. And again, I just want to thank everyone for bearing with me as I share all this information and all these pictures. Lot to take in, but it just all kind of goes together, and I just want to get it out there for people that do come to my channel, so that I won't just share one little detail about flat earth and they'll think it's stupid and be chased away and never watch anything again, because they don't have any of the other pieces to help them answer the obvious questions that come to your mind when you hear about flat earth. How does the sun work? How does the moon? How does this happen? And yada yada yada. So thank you again. Just like, share, and subscribe if you find this helpful. And Yahuwah bless you in Yahushua HaMashiach's name. That's Yah the Father through Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ the Son.